Hey, good morning, 7th grade. Today we are on day 2 of how the coronavirus affects your body. Let's start off with a really quick review of what we learned yesterday. Hold on, there you go. Number 1, coronavirus does affect both your respiratory system and your immune system. The first thing that we learned yesterday was how the coronavirus affects your respiratory system when it enters your lungs, because the first thing that it's going to do is attack your cilia, which are these specialized cells that kind of sweep away dirt, bacteria, and viruses, all that stuff that we don't want in our lungs. And when the coronavirus attacks those millions of little tiny cilia cells and the cells that they're attached to in your lungs, it's going to slough away. That's this word, slough away, and start blocking your airways. Here's a little quick recap of that. There's your cilia. They're attached to these epithelial cells that are inside of your lungs, and what they try to do is sweep away all that nasty stuff, dust, dirt, microbes that we don't want in our lungs. And there's tons and tons of them. So if coronavirus starts spreading and attaching to all these millions and millions of cilia, they start dying, sloughing away. They're going to start blocking your airways. And when millions and millions of those little cilia and these like dead epithelial cells start blocking your airways, it's going to become harder for you to breathe. Therefore, you might start with a dry cough and like maybe have some difficulty breathing too. Now today we are going to go into the second way that the coronavirus attacks your body. Remember, there's 3 ways. Yesterday we learned cilia. Today is key point number 2. How does coronavirus attack your alveoli? Now, if you'll remember, alveoli are those tiny little air sacs in the bottom of your lungs. Let's see if I can like draw on this. Can I? No. Well, all right. Anyway, alveoli are those tiny little air sacs at the very end of those branches in your lungs. So they are part of your respiratory system. In fact, they're super important to how humans get oxygen throughout the rest of your body. So let's start off with just a quick review as to what the alveoli do. All right, here's your first key point. Alveoli are the air sacs where oxygen exchange occurs. Now, if you want to pause here and look back at your green folder and look for your notes on the respiratory system, we did talk about the alveoli. And you can pause right here now too to write down this slide. But alveoli are these air sacs at the very end of the tubes in your lungs. They look like grapes. They're really small, and we have a bunch of these because they arguably have the most important job in the respiratory system. As you can see in this diagram, the alveoli are connected to capillaries, aka blood vessels, in our circulatory system. Now, a couple things happen here. Oxygen comes in through the tubes in your lungs and ends up here at the alveoli. They end up in these little air sacs. And now the air sacs, or the alveoli, are also connected to your capillaries. So what's going to happen here at the alveoli is whatever oxygen that you breathe in, it needs to be delivered to the rest of your body. It needs to be delivered to your brain, to your feet, to your stomach. Every single cell in your body needs oxygen. So when your alveoli receives oxygen, it's going to pass that oxygen onto those capillaries so that your oxygen can enter your bloodstream. Oxygen in the alveoli meets up with blood, and when the oxygen finally goes into your blood, it can travel throughout the rest of your body so that every single part of you can get oxygen. It doesn't just stay in the lungs. So again, alveoli exchange oxygen with your blood. And if that process is messed up, if my alveoli cannot give my capillaries oxygen, it's going to look pretty bad for me, because then the rest of my body does not have oxygen. As you can imagine, like if I'm not getting oxygen to every single part of my body, I'm pretty much going to die. So that is what the alveoli does. Again, it's just oxygen exchange. Your oxygen from your lungs goes into your bloodstream. Now, so before I explain to you how the coronavirus specifically attacks your alveoli, I need you to know what the word inflammation means. So you should probably write this slide down in your notes. Inflammation is what happens when your body gets hurt, or if something goes wrong inside of your body that you don't see. That part of your body is going to get inflamed. It's going to get inflammation. So for example, you've probably hit like your hand, maybe you've jammed your finger somewhere before, or maybe you got hurt just like this person in this picture. What you're seeing here is inflammation. Your body senses that something's going wrong, you're in pain, something went wrong. So a bunch of like fluids are going to flood into that part of your body. And at first, this is supposed to be helpful. It's supposed to cushion that part of your body so it doesn't get hurt more. But if too much inflammation happens, if there's too much fluid rushing to that part of your body, it doesn't look good. It starts to get swollen, right? And I'm sure this has happened to like all of us before. Trying to think. Oh yeah, one time when I fell like off of a mountain, I banged my knee on a rock. My whole knee like literally got so swollen. It got so inflamed. It looked like there was like fluid in there. Like if you poked it, it would bounce back. It looked kind of like this, but imagine that on your knee. But it happens to everybody. We all get inflamed every once in a while when we bust up our body, or like sometimes it's gonna happen inside of your lungs in this case. So it's not. Again, inflammation is not good when too much of it happens, because that part of your body is going to get swollen, and a bunch of liquids and fluids that we don't want in that part of our body can start rushing over. So inflammation can go wrong. Now, let's see what happens to our lungs, to our alveoli, when a coronavirus attacks. As soon as this video loads. Here we go. All right, so here is our, oh God, hold on, this is wrong. Uh-oh, I'm going backwards. Here we go. All right, here's our lungs. And I'm going to zoom into this little branch right here in our lungs. And at the end of those branches, we know that there are alveoli. All right, and so here's my drawing of an alveoli. What happens in your alveoli is you're going to breathe in oxygen. Where is my oxygen? There it is. You're going to breathe in oxygen, and your oxygen is going to end up in this little air sac. I'm noting oxygen as O2. That's the chemical formula for oxygen. And so your capillaries from the circulatory system are also connected to your alveoli. So there's your vein, and it's going to connect to the alveoli, grab all of that oxygen, and now your blood has oxygen in it, which it's now going to travel to the rest of your body and deliver that oxygen to all of your cells. So that's good. That's what the alveoli does when it's healthy. Now, here is what could happen to our alveoli if a coronavirus like this one starts attacking. So you're going to get a bunch of inflammation, first of all. So I'm going to note that right here. When this coronavirus over here attacks, your body is going to have this response of inflammation. So it's going to start to swell. All this yellow stuff around your alveoli, I've drew that to show you that this part of your body, like right next to those capillaries and in between the alveoli, it's going to start to swell up. It's not going to be nice. In addition to all that swelling, a bunch of fluids are going to start leaking into your alveoli. So here's your vein, and when the coronavirus hits, all of this like fluid that we don't want in our alveoli, it's going to start flooding into our alveoli. Because of that inflammation, it's going to start swelling and flooding. And so we have all this fluid now that is in our alveoli that we really like don't want there in the first place. So if our alveoli is flooded with fluid, do you think that we can have like oxygen in our bodies? it's not going to go well. That oxygen that's in our alveoli, it can't pass through the fluid. It's like you're trying to like push oxygen through a bunch of fluid. It's not going to work. So if oxygen cannot pass from our alveoli into our bloodstream, what do you think is going to happen? If it can't pass, we're not going to be like really able to deliver oxygen to the rest of our body, which results in respiratory failure. Basically, it's going to be super hard for you to start breathing if your alveoli are literally like drowning in fluid. It's going to be really tough for you to breathe. And in some really severe cases, like if it gets really, really bad, your whole lung is going to start like filling up with fluid. You basically like almost like drown yourself because your body has such a horrible response to the coronavirus. On top of like all this like fluid leaking, you also have, remember from yesterday, all the cilia that died. It's already clogging up all of those all of your airways in your lungs. So like two things happen. All that dead cilia is clogging up your lungs already, and then because of inflammation, we have all this fluid that we don't want filling up our alveoli and then filling up our lungs. And so your lungs become super clogged, and for really severe cases, it's literally like you're like drowning yourself. So you can tell that the coronavirus has some pretty serious side effects. And to summarize, one, alveoli is where important oxygen exchange occurs, right? When you're healthy, your alveoli is able to pass oxygen on into your bloodstream, and now your blood has oxygen in it, which is great. But number two, when your body senses coronavirus and can't really fight it off very well, it's going to trigger an inflammatory response. Parts of your lungs and like between your capillaries and your alveoli are going to start swelling because it's going to look disgusting. So when your capillaries get swollen, your capillaries are also going to start leaking fluid into alveoli, because we have like fluids like running through our bodies, right? But that's not good when those fluids start to enter your alveoli, because then your alveoli starts drowning. Your oxygen cannot pass through that water in your alveoli. It can't pass through those fluids. So then our bloodstream is lacking oxygen. And then in serious cases, for people who have who like end up in the hospital and are on those respirators, those breathing machines, it's because their lungs can even get flooded by all that fluid that's passing through the capillaries because of this inflammation. On top of the fluids, it's also like the dead cilia and the dead cells that are blocking the airways, which we learned about yesterday. So those are the two ways that we know so far about how the coronavirus affects your respiratory system. One, your cilia, your dead cilia and your dead epithelial cells are going to start clogging the airways in your lungs. And then two, because of inflammation, because of the swelling in your body that occurs with the coronavirus, your capillaries are going to start leaking fluids into your alveoli. And if your alveoli is flooded with liquids, it cannot transfer the oxygen into your bloodstream. So that's our lesson for today. Here are some like other helpful videos that I'm going to post on Class Dojo if you want to learn more about it. And there's these 3 different people kind of teach the same lesson in a different way if you need some more clarification. And again, make sure that you go back, pause, take notes where you need to take notes, and then use your notes and this video to answer your do now, your CFUs, draw your comic strip, and then fill out your exit ticket. That's it for today.